Joystick fans, this is Av D'Amatos with Ludwig Kitzman, here to talk about the Bureau-XCOM-Declassified, which you got to play, Luddy, at a recent event. The upcoming game from 2K Marin has been announced and shelved, and it's back again, coming out next month. So tell us about the game, because it used to be a first-person shooter. What is it now?
Right, it's very confusing if you've been following the public timeline of the game. I would say that you should really fixate on the Bureau part of the game. It's no longer an XCOM game as it was sort of announced at the beginning. It is not a first-person shooter. It is not a turn-based strategy game. It is now a third-person shooter with very heavy tactical elements. The only thing that doesn't really do the game favors is the title right now, which is The Bureau-XCOM Declassified, which is meant to tie it to the bigger franchise of XCOM, but really is just putting two organizations on either side of a colon.
You there?
Happening.
You all right? Hey!
Can't be happening.
Oh, Christ!
In terms of the universe for XCOM, this actually takes place right after the first contact. So this is sort of in the timeline, the narrative, the first time the humans have seen aliens in this universe.
Right, you're seeing the organization being established as the first wave of aliens come in. They're called the Outsiders, but there are also classic XCOM enemies involved. You will be playing as Agent William Carter, who is sort of drawn into this organization, and you get to see things form around him and from his perspective. So rather than being the commander from a top-down perspective as you were in XCOM Enemy Unknown, you're on the ground and sort of in the midst of the combat.
You mentioned the tactical nature of the gameplay. It is a third-person shooter, so how does the game actually work when you're playing it?
Well, much like Mass Effect, you're controlling a three-person squad, so while you are directly controlling the actions of Carter and you're shooting by yourself, you can also position the other two squad mates, send them into different parts of cover, have them use special abilities, and they're very reliant on you constantly using these abilities because your ability to make up for a poor strategy just by shooting at things is not going to be very successful. The game's difficulty is actually very adamant about that.
Cut through that cowshed.
One of the components from XCOM Enemy Unknown was putting a personal spin on the squad members that you had. Does that also feature in the Bureau?
Yes, it does. You can customize their names, their clothing. You can equip special backpacks that allow certain buffs or special techniques. And of course, you can choose their classes. So you're ultimately constructing a squad and personalizing them. Even if you choose to equip them all with horrible lime green vests, you're gambling them every time you go into battle. Like, there's that consistent fear that you will lose them, and when you lose a high-leveled engineer, for instance, you lose a lot of the abilities that you've earned, such as deploying mines and turrets. When you lose someone, you're losing a big chunk of the options you have in creating a successful strategy. So that is a very constant fear throughout the game.
So the Bureau-XCOM Declassified is coming out on August 20th for the PC, PS3, and the Xbox 360. Not a lot of time left. What are some of the things that you think they're doing right? What are your concerns with the game so close to launch?
I think the setting is very interesting inherently because the further we get from these historic periods, the more it becomes like fantasy in a way. I think a lot of people who will be playing the game were not alive during that period, so that'll be interesting. And they also seem very dedicated in telling a story around the characters in XCOM, which is a very different experience from the strategy that you had in XCOM Enemy Unknown, where the stories were very much about things that happened to you while you were playing the game. It wasn't really set in the fiction that was playing out in the game. The biggest problem I think they have right now is a question of branding. It's very difficult for people to latch onto a game that has been announced multiple times, obviously. And I think there'll definitely be a difficulty hump in the game. If you choose to play on a harder difficulty, you'll feel like you don't have all the tactics available to you because everyone is in level 1 and you haven't unlocked a lot of stuff. It feels like you're being pushed to use tactics to survive, but you simply don't have them yet. So I think it's really an issue of tuning at the beginning of the game, and that, at least that's my experience.
They've got that spot locked down! Going now!
and you basically rush into battle, and then you point people in direction, and you tell them to blah blah.
Wait, so you could recruit amorphous blobs in this game? You tell them to blah.